We lived in a car basically for a month. And then after a car, we went to the basement indeed. If you have a goal that you want to go to, you need to be very focused and you need to be okay to work harder than everyone else.
Years ago or 15 years ago, what we were trying to figure out.
10, 15 years ago, I was back in the Netherlands. I was the typical kid that was selling candy from his locker. So that there was some entrepreneurial spirit in it. From the moment that you move to a new country, that is something that is an entrepreneurial deed in itself, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone who moves to a new country, leaves behind a life that they know. I was dedicated to go to Sweden. If you have a goal that you want to go to, for example, moving to Sweden, you need to be very focused and you need to be okay to work harder than everyone else does here in the country to get the same results.
Hmm.
And like 8 years ago, we just used wild camping. We lived in a car basically for a month. And then after a car, we went to the basement. And then after the basement, we got a nice apartment. You just built on to the next step. The learning that I want to draw out of it is, if you have a goal, you can think creatively on ways to get there. Because if you really want to, then you can often get there. The cases that you don't land somewhere or when it's too hard is probably because you don't want to pay the price that it costs to get that result.
Have you had this mindset every step of the way since you were in high school?
The mindset is always work in progress, right? There is one quote that pops in my mind now from Atomic Habits, great book. And it says, the problem with goals is that both winners and losers have the same goals, right? Because they both want to be free in terms of financial freedom. They both want to have a shit ton of money to do whatever they want. But one is actually taking the actions and the other is mainly blaming everything around them because we're not going to get there. And this builds over time because you need to have the experience and the humbleness.
It's a way of doing things that you can apply to almost everything. I'm curious how success changes over these years.
And I also think that this is work in progress as well. Success means something different every stage in life, but it doesn't really mean that you can put your measurements of success or your way to get there on anyone else and expect it to work. And I think parenthood is the best example of it because you can be extremely successful in your career now. But if you're going to tell it to your kid, or even I'm also doing a lot of mentoring, if you're going to tell it to your mentee, they have different qualities. It's a different time. And the things that worked then didn't work now. So what people need to get started is a safe environment where it is okay to just fail. Because there is so much mental fights that you have before you start a company and during you start a company and when you run a company. And that doesn't matter if you are, doing 100,000 in revenue or 100 euros in revenue every month. That's for everyone. It's just different levels, and you cannot compare one with the other, even if there are different levels.
How do you cope with failure? How do you see failure?
I see failure as an opportunity to grow, and failure hurts the most when you are going to look for a reason that is outside of yourself. I tend to take ownership for almost everything because then it's in my control.
What are you doing at the moment? What excites you in this moment in time?
So in this moment in time, I'm building an AI company. And that's a very special thing in itself. We now have phase 1 AI, which is the agency that we're building where we help companies with implementing workflows. And the tagline of the company is make AI boring and profitable, right? Because if we talk about AI now in this case, it's a very wide thing. Most people start to understand that now. But a lot of people are also afraid like, yeah, but there is so much coming on. There is so much new every week. Where can I start? So what we found out from experience is that the best place to start is actually in a super small project that is super boring, but that saves you some time and just get used to the super low intensity implementation that paid back in weeks or a few months at maximum. The most wonderful thing that we have done so far is a email drafter in the tone of voice of the person.
Mm.
So when they log into their email, they have drafts already standing there for them in their tone of voice. So it's not AI-ish. They just add the details and send it out. That saves about 30% in your mailbox. People spend a day in a week in your mailbox, like 20% of the time. If some people, more. If you take, for example, a cut of 30% of that, that is a lot of hours every week already. Aim for extracting documents and putting it in the right map. That can be done automatically. Super boring automations that can make a big difference. Now, with those lessons, we're productizing a specific thing, which we started building like 2 weeks ago. We have already talked to the first potential customers. And that is a due diligence tool and a due diligence check, I would say. And what it does, the input is, all the pitch decks, all the documents that you usually need to go through manually. And the output, what you'll get is, why is this deal good? Why does it suck? What questions are you going to get from your investment committee? And here are the memo blocks. So what you get from the system is basically a check that says like, okay, the company thinks this, and this is super important what you need to see. And this is what the market is really looking for. So if we have that in the system, associates that look through the deals don't have to scroll 20 hours through the deals anymore, but they just need to spend 10 hours maybe, and they got the first start already. So they have something to start from. I still believe that we will only do well with AI if the human is still in the loop. Because AI is bad in a lot of things. And we need to start working with it more, collaborating with it more, instead of seeing it as a completely different.
What was the hardest part starting this business? Because I imagine a lot of things might go wrong.
The hardest part is still the thing today, right? And that is that running a AI business sounds fun, sounds like big business and super cool. But most people rather push forward the square wheel than saying like, hey, here I have a round one. Do you want to try it? They say, no, we're just pushing forward the square wheel because it feels so much better. And the adoption rates, they're way lower than they need to be because it's so hard nowadays to hear, okay, what is true and what is wrong. So people first need to be educated about what is good and what is wrong before they take action, because otherwise you're just overwhelmed and guaranteed that then you're going to invest in tools or solutions that are way too big for your scope, that don't fit your scope.
Was AI a passion of you? What was the reason you wanted to go into the AI as an entrepreneur?
So it was the first time I was working with AI was around 2020, when I worked in a consultancy firm as business consultant with technologies like AI and Web3 and all those kind of things. I have always been in the technology space as well in the startups that I worked with. Why I moved to AI is because what I saw happening was that there is an opportunity that is going to grow so big. The change that this is going to make will be so big that a lot of people need to be informed about this. I want to be on top of it, and I mainly want to protect people. That is also what I'm saying with make it boring and profitable, about what does work and warn them of what is not working, because that's the easiest one, right? The easiest one is to just go along and listen to the biggest hype and test it out without knowing the background, because, knowing the background is a little bit boring work. So that is why 95% of the AI projects today still fail, because they thought, there is not that much research needed. This guy says that he can make me €1,000 a week with a simple flow. Let's give him all my data. There is no awareness what damage it can do because it's such a new market.
You're talking about the people, how they should be more aware, how it makes their life easier. Business, it's around the need of your customers and trying to solve that need. Otherwise, you don't have a business.
I believe that listening to the customer is important, but the thing is, how do you listen to someone who doesn't know what is possible and who doesn't know what the risks are? So my task is basically to help him discover that, him or her discover that, before we're going to make something big. And the thing is, the reason why it's hard for them to learn themselves is because there are so many sources out there, and it's hard to see what's good and what's bad. but actually sitting with them and telling them, giving them a framework that they can judge themselves what is good and what is bad doesn't have to take more than 2, 3 hours. And then they have complete clarity about it. And then they know, okay, will this bring me business value or not? But you just need to have the foundations, and it would be ideal if we can spread those foundations over everyone. Like it's like, why don't they give investing classes in school, right? Because it should be good if more people invest in the stock market instead of just spending all their money. Would make a lot more economically resilient society. This is the same with AI. There are so many risks that you take if you don't know the basics. So go back to the basics, start super small, make it boring and profitable. Focus on those things first.
First is to have a product functional and good working. And the second one is educating the customers to see what they actually need.
Exactly. And it sounds like a nice angle, but it takes a lot of patience because you're actually working with a premature market, which means that, most AI businesses, also business owners that I speak to, don't make a shit ton of money right now because they still need to educate.
What advice you would give yourself for the younger self?
The easiest one is just that it will be all right. And that is still what I would probably tell you in 20 years as well, 20 years forward from now. Like, it will be all right. We care a lot about a lot of things that are so unimportant, because building a business is an intense thing to do. But it's also, you choose yourself to go through the pain every day. It's self-inflicted pain.
Yeah.
And if you can look forward and that whatever happens, so what? It's going to be all right. Doesn't matter what it is. And the luxury that I didn't have 20 years ago, but that I do have now, is that I've seen some successes, which means that you actually see a reason why it could go well, because other things did go well, which you just, left alone and didn't worry about too much. You can use your previous successes to learn from, and calm yourself.
Right.
Because if some bigger things, that's why I think failures, to come back to that question, is the opportunity for growth. Because whatever is the problem that's on your path, you can turn it around and say, like, if I did this, then whatever comes my path tomorrow or in 5 years, it will be all right.
What are the qualities you see an entrepreneur has to develop?
Risk taking is a very logical one, but I would tell it's practical risk taking, right? It's not just taking any risk that you want, but just figuring stuff out. That is a very important one. Then I think you need to be a very good systems thinker as an entrepreneur to spot things that other people don't see. So that is a very important one as well. Just be and in the systems thinking, I mean more the curiosity part of it. Like, hey, how does this work? And if you already compare that with the previous one that I said, the getting things done practically, that means that you're action oriented and curious, which means that no one, that you're super hard to stop. And if we have a third one, place for a third one, and we sprinkle a little bit of resilience over it, that means that you're curious, action oriented, and you just won't stop until you've done that thing, and you can handle if something comes on your path. So resilience, but also a little bit of stiffness, and knowing when not to give in, when not to give in, when to give in. I had a super cool job interview yesterday with the candidate, and he learned me something super cool. That was, make it a habit to say 2 times yes and the third time no. Just to say, like, you don't have to do anything that comes on your path. You need to balance it out and saying, like, hey, do I really want to listen to whatever other people are saying, or do I just want to go my own path? And that's a very hard thing.
At some point, you were talking about having the safe space to fail. And I'm really curious, how do you see this space for yourself and also for other entrepreneurs? Where is that? Is it family? Is it community? People were also saying that even my family don't really understand, my friend doesn't really understand the struggle that I am going through as an entrepreneur, right?
And they will never do, because the closer the people are, the harder they make it for you to grow, because they know you from before and they just want you to be like them. It's like to uh, other lobsters, or it's an animal. They always put them with two in a bucket. So when one tries to climb out, the other one draws him back. And that is family, you know. They want you to do well, but that also means that the distance from them is getting bigger, so they preferably have you a little bit closer and just draw you back in the bucket. So I think the safest space are good communities. That's also why now we have AI Builders, which is Southern Sweden's biggest AI community, where we just have safe space to, to ask the questions that, as someone described, I cannot talk about at home. In my team, people get crazy of one sentence that I'm saying. And I say, please, I need you to challenge me, you know, and also showing mistakes myself. And also just saying, like, if we have the openness and transparency where everyone can feel, then it's okay. Just have a culture of, normalizing failure. And then when I'm saying it now, and they've been working a week with me, then they're just starting laughing at me. They're like, I know, you know. Oops, now it's clear. You said that 5 times before today. So just normalizing, like challenging each other, getting the best out of each other. And I think that goes way better with people that are far away from you than people who are super close.